today, folks, we have a really conflicting film to tackle in Cars 3. I mean conflicting before we even get into the film. That's just what the Cars films are these days. In Pixar's glorious run of masterpieces and near masterpieces from 1995 to 2010, the original Cars is almost universally regarded as the weak link. Still a really good film, but even though I have a soft spot for it, it's not great, however close it comes. The weird thing is that it feels both retroactively better and worse nowadays. Better because it trumps almost every Pixar release since 2011 that began with Cars 2, and worse because that's just what franchise and merchandise saturation does to a film that isn't universally loved. Cars 2, whatever small pleasures it may have, feels like a betrayal of the first film, whether it be putting Mater front and centre, who can't handle the whole film, or tossing out the small town America feel of slowing down and appreciating life for a spy movie parody. It had something that actively annoyed most fans of the original, to say nothing of those that weren't all that enchanted by the first Cars. So, the good news is that Cars 3 is nothing like Cars 2. In fact, there's no evidence within the film that Cars 2 even happened, so Pixar's not tone deaf. Instead, Cars 3 is partly a do-over of the first Cars, but it's got plenty of pleasures of its own, and even more than the first Cars, it has the blood, or more appropriately, oil, of a classic sports film flowing through its veins, or engine, as it were. In fact, Cars 3 is basically to the first Cars as a later Rocky film is to Rocky, story-wise. Long after his rise to fame in the Piston Cup, Lightning McQueen has become a much-loved elder race car on the circuit. As will happen, newer, younger athletes seek to uproot him, personified in a young, arrogant hotshot, Jackson Storm. Lightning's attempts to stay on top results in the haunting crash scene from the film's teaser trailer, and in him being haunted by the possibility that he might be too outmoded to compete in the only world he's known. So begins his spiritual journey, first in a new trainer, Cruz Marias, and then in memories of his old mentor, Doc Hudson. The above succinct summary probably sounds deeper than it actually is. After all, when Pixar did a story of an aging hero discovering the world is evolving beyond him, and that it's up to that hero whether he's going to adapt and find a role, the result was Toy Story, an undisputable masterpiece. Cars 3 is no Toy Story, not that more than a few of us would have hoped that it would be, and it is not trying to be. What it is trying to be is a simple, nice little flick, and it passes that time trial with more than a few seconds to spare in the form of pleasurable grace notes. Of course, another problem people of my generation seem to have is the anti-logic of a world populated primarily by anthropomorphic cars. I can kind of understand why people would gravitate towards this, but not why they would let it become a film-damaging problem. By virtue of its lore shaping and world building, Cars 3 certainly does highlight more of those fallacies of logic, with two in particular deriving from its plot. The first being the rationality of the younger cars being precision engineered, as though that's exclusive to them, and the other being the question of how cars age, given how much aging factors into the narrative. You probably already know to what extent these things will spoil your enjoyment of the film. Me? I had only the bare minimum of trouble sidelining such matters. Let's not mince words here. This is one of those kids' films that parents take their children to and have a passable, pleasant time themselves, and not much more. It's not a good sign that I observed a father at my screening on his phone at one point, anyway. Tastes differ, of course. This adult had a more than pleasant time. In fact, pleasant is just the word to describe Cars 3. Though it has more racing scenes than either of the previous films, it's far more relaxed in its casual ambition to enjoy the American vistas, which, as a non-American who thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of the first Cars, I was more than receptive to. This casual ambition extends to the animation of the film too. The first Cars really pushed the envelope on photorealistic surfaces and lovely vistas, while Cars 2, for all its detriments, still expanded the potential of animation in lighting and design. There's nothing groundbreaking in Cars 3, for the days of every Pixar film further pushing the technological possibilities of computer animation seem to be behind us. On the other hand, the filmmakers do nothing to threaten Pixar's reputation of making the most advanced animated films either. There's lots of gorgeous landscapes, and the textures are advanced enough that it's really easy to convince yourself of the cars being real in any shot where you can't see their eyes and face. Mostly, it's just very pretty, especially in the shoddy lighting and texture of the cars themselves. The sole exception is also the film's most thrilling sequence, a mud-soaked demolition derby that not only has the best editing and choreography, but is also the only point where racing is portrayed as a thrilling episode, rather than the peaceful act of self-reflection it is elsewhere. Mostly, The lack of ambition rarely grates, given the ease of the film's goals, and it's not even an issue that the film usually sells for amusing rather than going for funny. Though this is a film that exists firstly because Disney executives wanted it to, the filmmakers still clearly cared about what they were making. The one time I actively wished for the film to have the psychological debt of most of Pixar's library came in the character of Cruz, who works as someone using her chosen field to mask her self-doubt, but could do to not be defined by solely that, given especially solid voice acting on her end. It should also be mentioned that Storm is a very shallow rival, with little enough personality as to make Chick Hicks from the first film seem deep. The research the filmmakers did into competitive racing shows, with this film easily hitting the goal of being universal in its themes through focusing on something specific. Otherwise, it's tender and sweet, presenting its notions on aging and self-doubt with dignity, respecting the achievements of the forefathers of its given field, and looking to the future's possibilities so gently it barely registers. There's little else to this tiny fable when all is said and done, but despite broadly redoing the first Cars, just in 15 less minutes, and including a fair share of reworked score from it, it's good enough to stand alongside Pixar's recent Good Enough sequels. I still heavily wish for the days when Pixar cranked out fantastic films with such apparent ease, but hey, better an enjoyable film like this than the taste this product cranked out by many others. Thanks for watching the review, folks. As always, I'm your host, Mike Culligan of Cartoon Karma. If you like what you saw, leave a like or a comment. That'd be pretty neat. Subscribing will be even neater. Or you can check out my other videos, where I cover animation of all shapes and sizes. Perhaps even follow the channel on Facebook and Twitter. All your choice, but it sure brings a smile to my face. Until next time, folks.